Welcome to the Superhero of Love podcast. I am Bridget Fonger. I wrote a book called Superhero of Love, Heal Your Broken Heart and Then Go Save the World. That book is going to be out in January 2019, but I didn't want to wait until that time to start talking to superheroes of love. And guess what? Here's the news. You are a superhero of love. And through talking to other superheroes like yourself, tapping into that little superhero inside of you, I'm hoping that you and I and all of us start feeling more and more like superheroes of love, meaning that we love and are loved more than ever before. So welcome. Let's get this party started. Welcome, superheroes. We are here with a delightful, amazing woman, a film director, more than a film director, a giant heart, a superhero of love, who's been married over 50 years, who has a vibrant, close-knit family, who is successfully being a mom, a grandmother, and leading her family with love, leading her life with love, leading her career with love. Welcome, Jerri Sher.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, Jerri and I ran into each other on 4th of July, and I wish you were wearing your glasses right now. I forgot to tell you to wear your glasses because she has the most hilarious.
Oh,
it's
they're
okay.
ready.
Oh, good. She's going to go get them. She has the most hilarious giant star glasses. These are so wonderful. Oh my God, they're so fantastic.
I mean, I certainly can't leave them on all the time, but
I'm so glad
I call them my Hollywood glasses.
So for those of you listening to the audio of the podcast, the video is also available on the Superhero of Love YouTube channel. So you can see her glasses, but we'll include a picture of you with your glasses in the podcast notes too. Because they're too fabulous. But I saw you on 4th of July and we were talking about your new movie, Quiet Explosions. And you were telling me all these amazing things about it. And I was like, we have to talk about that. But let's stop and we'll talk about that in a quick second. But I just want to introduce how we first met each other, which is you were doing a documentary, a 10-part series documentary, which I'll have you talk about. And several of the parts were on the teacher that I study with, Master John Douglas. And so you were in my orbit because of shooting this, those pieces of the documentary. And we were all super excited because we thought, oh, it's going to be on Discovery Channel. And we were just all so excited that Master John Douglas was going to get out in the world. And like movies of all types, the way that the outcome, the way that the cookie crumbles in the film world is not always exactly. Okay, wait, we just lost audio. Okay, I don't know if I lost internet connection or you did, but okay, now we're back. So the way that the film industry works is things don't always come out as we think they're going to, and masses of people haven't seen this documentary, but I am a stand that masses of people will see your documentary because I saw several pieces of it and it is amazing. So why don't you tell us about that documentary first, and then we'll move our way into Quiet Explosions.
Thank you. I will. So really, Live Life is a docudrama series, a 12-part series about healing through alternative ways, methods, different ideas of healing other than Western medicine. And truly, when I met John Douglas, Master John Douglas, I was amazed at what he had done. 4 of the 12 of the series include his work specifically. And I was drawn to these characters and these people who had miraculous stories, something like a miracle, where you think, they would never recover, and they did. That will air soon. We know that because now that Quiet Explosions has sort of taken off, it's funny how things work, but in the universe, I feel like it happens when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. I love one of the other things that we have in common, speaking of things happening when they're supposed to happen, is a love of James Redfield and the Celestine Prophecy. Tell us about how the Celestine Prophecy changed your life.
Many, many, many years ago, I read The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, and I have ever since then been recommending it to everyone, because I feel like everything in your life, if you really are aware of what's happening, and especially at the moment, and be in the present, great things will happen. And all of the people that come into my life, who come in, I am very specific about getting to know them and figuring out why they're there in my life. And sure enough, they're there for a purpose. And I'm going to give you a very strange little example, but 2 nights ago, Alan and I were taking an Uber to a restaurant. It was the night of the earthquake, actually. And Alan was chatting with the gentleman, and it turned out he was very into movies. He's in the business, of course. So one thing led to another, and the next day I called him because he has a post-production facility. And I said, you know, you never know, you might be able to help me out. And I was with him today. He wanted to give me a tour of the place and work on my stuff. It's just crazy how that happened, but that's the Celestine Prophecy.
Right. And paying attention to those synchronicities and paying attention to the connections and how they might, but I feel like you, and I also, I share a great love of that book too. I read it when it first came out, and it changed my life because I started paying attention to the little synchronicities in life. And, but you have taken it to that superhero of love level, which is that you not only pay attention to the synchronicities, but you greet them all with your heart is so open. And I'm just in awe of how you, like, not only do you find out that you guys share your business in common and that you might be able to use him, but you opened your heart to him. And anyway, I just want to applaud you for the way that you live life, to quote the title of your movie.
Well, that is so sweet. But you know what did it? I was in the restaurant and I got a text from this man saying, when I saw your card, I had to pull over and watch the Quiet Explosions trailer right away.
Oh,
I thought, oh my God, when does this ever happen?
That's so cool. Okay, so great segue into Quiet Explosions. Tell us about this, because this is such an important documentary. Tell us about Quiet Explosions, and also, can you start with how it came about, the little synchronicities that started you even on the road to Quiet Explosions?
Well, 2.5 years ago, one of my old friends from way back in Fall River, Massachusetts, where I was born, who I used to babysit for, contacted me through an email. And she works for a publisher who was working on this book of a Green Beret. And she told me this was like the best book ever. And she knew I made movies, and she knew about my career and what I had done and winning an Emmy. And she wanted to know if I would be interested in making this into a movie. She hooked me up with this gentleman, the Green Beret. And I thought, wow, I haven't talked to her in so many years. You know, I was 16 when I was a babysitter. So I thought this was pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. And she hooked me up with Andrew Marr, and I read the book, The Galleys, at the time. The book wasn't even out. And I knew it was spectacular, especially because it was about traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress, which is so prevalent in the world today. And the doctor who's found a way to help all these people is right in my backyard in Encino. So I knew this was for me specifically. And she put us in touch, and Andrew came out here to meet me. He watched 3 episodes of Live Life, and he just stood up and was crying and clapping, and he said, you have the rights to the book. And I said, well, Andrew, that's good, but I'll only do this movie under one condition. It'll be a third military, a third civilian, and a third athletes, because I knew what was happening to the football players and the soccer players and people who are boxing, and I wanted this to affect everyone in the world. And he said, absolutely, Jerri. And that's when our journey started.
Oh, so beautiful. Talk about, because I did not know how post-traumatic stress syndrome can affect the brain. That was news to me. So talk about that. Give us a little bit on that.
Well, it turns out that in the back of the brain is the pituitary gland, and when it gets knocked around, somehow the hormones are disturbed. Your brain needs over 18 hormones to effectively work properly, and they need to be in the right amounts. And when those things are missing, you're not going to act right. You know, things are going to happen in your mind, and your function is going to be like way off, and you might be angered, you might be having road rage, you might sleep all the time, depression, and so on. Similarly, all inflammation is caused when you have a trauma, when you're in grief, when something horrible happens to you. And post-traumatic stress very often is from these kind of things, like if a person gets raped, or if they are hit over the head and then they have a trauma that somebody stole all their things and they're homeless or whatever. So, and a lot of people in the military have post-traumatic stress from the things they saw, these horrible things in Afghanistan and Iraq, Vietnam, and so on. So it's just had different names over the years, but you know, it's kind of called the silent killer. And now there is a way to help all these people, whether it's from just post-traumatic stress or a beating over the head, or, you know, a helmet and being crushed to the ground in football. The similar ways to combat all of these symptoms and make them better and regulate the hormones. Dr. Gordon does extensive blood work, and he figures out exactly what's missing, to what degree, and replenishes everything that you need to make your brain right.
And on some level, does everybody, like, should everybody be tested? I mean, it just sounds like everybody's gone through some huge trauma in their life. In other words, do the chemicals go out of balance and stay out of balance? Is there a sustained injury, in other words, from even an emotional trauma?
When they're out, they're out. And you know, everybody, you know, it's funny, the vice president of Walt Disney World was at a screening of mine recently, and he came and called me the next day and said, I want to get my brain scanned right now. You know, after seeing your movie, I want to get my brain scanned. And he said, everyone over 40 cares about what's happening in their brain with the onset of Alzheimer's later on and dementia. Well, it's true. And Dr. Amen's clinic, he's in our film as well, Dr. Gordon, they have ways of looking inside the brain, especially at the SPECT scan that Dr. Amen has created. You can see the blood flow. You can see what's happening in the brain, different from an MRI or a CT scan.
Wow. Yeah, it makes me want to go get a brain scan too. I haven't even seen the movie. Okay, so tell us about some of the people that are in the movie.
Well, you know, we have 4 military people. Andrew Marr is the Green Beret. We have Kevin, who is a Green Beret as well. Annie is our Navy gal, and she had trauma from being raped in the Navy twice. And we also have Ben Drybergen, who was a Marine in Iraq, and he was on Survivor. He was a winner of Survivor in the Survivor season of December 17th, 2017. Then we have a very renowned surfer, Sean Dollar, who has had thousands of concussions and has fallen, you know, onto rocks and cracked his head and broken his neck, and he's just had very bad, severe trauma. He actually was treated by 3 of the doctors in our movie. We have a firefighter from 9/11, first responder, who had severe PTSD, severe. We have 2 major football players, Mark Rippon, who is Super Bowl MVP. He used to be in the Washington Redskins, and he was the quarterback. He's had severe trauma. And Anthony Davis, who was known as the Notre Dame killer. He played as a running back for USC many years ago, and he's had a lot of brain trauma as well. We also have a regular person, I would say a civilian, who had surgery for 22 years ago and was under the knife for 10 hours and lost his short-term memory. And he had brain effect. And now he's getting better being on Dr. Gordon's protocols.
Wow. Okay.
And we have a gymnast, a female gymnast from Nashville, and she cracked her head many times.
Oh my God. Oh, I don't even think of gymnasts cracking their head, but they must crack their heads all the time. Oh my God. So, and the title of Andrew's book also Quiet Explosions?
No, actually the title of the book, written by Andrew and Adam Marr, his brother Adam, is Tales from the Blast Factory. We specifically did not make the same title because this movie encompasses so much more than just the book. And I felt in my heart that, you know, I really had to embrace the whole community of the world, because over 80 million people in the world have had TBI or PTS.
Yeah, I love the title Quiet Explosions because it also, I don't know, it brings my mind to your heart, you know, like you're having a quiet explosion in your heart and it affects your brain. And
There's
and
so
then
much.
and then the other explosions that literally are racking your brain. I'm so excited about this movie, and yeah, and we will be, so watch for Quiet Explosions, everybody, because people are fighting for it now, who's going to distribute it, which is a really great problem for you to have, Jerry.
Yes, and the Quiet Explosions, Healing the Brain, which is like the subtitle, also talks about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is another major thing that is going to just explode. Think of explosions in the next few years, because what was MRI and CTE scan, 20 years ago, well, HBOT, people don't know about it that much now, but in 10 years, everybody's going to know about it. It's going into a chamber and having massive amounts of oxygen come into your brain.
I actually have had an experience with the hyperbaric chamber. I cracked my knee. I had run a marathon the week before and didn't have a single injury, but a week later I ran down a hill really fast in a training run and cracked my knee, and a friend brought over her hyperbaric chamber, and it actually really helped heal really quickly the broken kneecap. It was amazing. So I have some beautiful experience with that myself. All right, so now I want to shift to how you are a superhero of love in the world, because you are clear. Wait, before we shift that, I have to go back, because the very first short documentary that you made, for which you won an Emmy, was also a superhero of love project, meaning it was a giant heart project that you did. So tell everybody about that.
Well, I'm in the Directors Guild of America, and I have been since 1998, and they chose some directors, and I was one of them, to work with a charity in Santa Monica. My charity was Step Up, who provides homes for homeless people, and we were given the task of making a short movie, about the charity. And I interviewed Leroy. Well, I interviewed many people, but I figured out to make the movie about this man, Leroy, who had been homeless for 18 years. His transformation completely, and then how Step Up gave him a home, a real home, and how he is now. And it was just a labor of love, I have to say. I fell in love with all the people at Step Up and how they help everybody, and it was just a great thing. And everybody just jumped on board to make sure that movie happened, and that's the one that I won the Emmys for.
And congratulations. But they're all love projects, all of these projects, and they all help inspire people's hearts, empower them, clear their hearts, look at their own hearts and see where they may want to look inside and see if there's something to unravel or to take care of. So bravo for all that work that you do. I'm so in awe of you, and you just keep going at it. You just keep, and you're following those. I just love the stories, because we don't have time to tell all the stories, but each and every one of these projects, like the amount of synchronicities, and you just follow your heart every step of the way, and the world rises to meet you, right? And somebody might say, oh, she's lucky, but really it's the energy that you put out into the world. You lead with your heart, and the world rises to meet you. Don't you feel that that's my observance of you, but do you feel that that's the way it is? Okay, we just lost connection, so I need you to repeat. Did you hear me?
I would say I follow my heart, but I listen to my heart. Yes, I did. It was a little bit jumpy. I would say I follow my heart, but I also listen to my heart. Can you hear me now? It's saying your internet connection is unstable. I follow my heart, I listen to my heart, but I also know that the big thing in life is what you give, you receive. And I'm all about giving good things, giving love. I do not let any negativity into my brain ever. I never, ever read a newspaper. I never, ever watch news. Never. Because I will not allow any negativity to get into my soul or into my being, because it could influence me. I like everything to be on a very positive level, Because the only way that I can give back to the world positivity is if I'm all 100% positive.
Okay, so if the shit hits the fan, though, how do you greet the shit hitting the fan with love? Tell me what you do when.
Well, give me an example. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, for an example, like, do you mean like if I have to know something happening in the news? Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, like, if something happens in your life that isn't necessarily a positive thing to happen, do you greet it with positivity? In other words, something falls apart. Let's say something falls apart on set and you're trying to,
I get you.
Okay, good.
So the thing is that I'm a problem solver, and that's really what I'm really good at. And actually being a director and being a producer, you have to actually have insurmountable problems that you solve all day long, millions of them. My thing is to always think outside the box. I never think like everybody else. I always think outside the box, and that's how I'm able to cope with anything that might hit me that isn't the perfect solution or positive. So for instance, when I was going to invite distributors to see the movie, I went around the entire city for like 2-3 days straight, and I hand delivered the box to them with the invitation. And the man from Disney said, never had anybody come there physically and brought an invitation like that. So, I think everything is an exciting challenge rather than a problem. And
so
I think
great. That's so great. I love Jerri's background. One of her first jobs after she was an art professor at a college was working for a trucking company, and she knew nothing about trucking. And I love how you talk about problem solving in an industry that you knew nothing about.
Well, that's really how I learned all these skills, because when I was the only female in that business back in the early 80s, and I came at everything from a different perspective. So when I had all my clients, from Raytheon and Gillette and digital, I had a transportation party for them, and I had them all meet at a certain place, and I had them drawn by horse and buggies to my house for the party. And then I had an ice cream truck pull up for dessert, because it was all about transportation. And, I just think of these exciting ideas that nobody's thought of before, and that's kind of how I do it. I also think that my training about problem solving comes from Anthony Robbins, because Tony Robbins, I took all his courses, and I had the privilege of being at his castle before he went to Camp David with the president when he was so famous. So I learned so much from that. I learned that I can do anything. I can move mountains. I mean, I'm not film school taught. I mean, I didn't have a degree in film, and yet I'm making these movies all the time, and I know how to do it. So I feel like, the universe and God and the angels are giving me what I need when I need it. And I listen to that. And then I take it and I use it to the best of my ability. And I try to empower other people. Like, I always take 2 or 3 interns from colleges, students. I want to mentor them, and I help them as much as possible. In fact, the president of Cal State LA, Bill Covino, came to our cast and crew screening with his wife because I had 2 of their interns. And he said, it's a masterpiece.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Okay, well, let's talk about that, the angels and God and the messages that you're getting and listening to those messages. Have you been like that always, or did you learn to hear those messages?
I have to tell you that even when I was quite young, very young, I would say I would get information. Like, the first book I wrote was about the cure for HIV/AIDS. And when I came up with the theory, all my doctor friends said I was crazy, but it turned out that the theory I came up with was actually happening for real a few years later. So I don't know how, but somehow I'm downloaded information. I actually saw the whole internet and shopping and buying groceries online like 20, 30 years before it happened. But some of the stuff I just keep very private, and I don't really tell anybody about it, because I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's given to me, and it has to be coming from somewhere. So I guess I just have to listen to the clues and, work in the right way.
I just thought of something, which is that when you feel, and I feel like that too, and I'm constantly working on listening to the messages and clearing the way for those messages. There's a concept in my book called super hearing. It's one of the 5 superpowers that I say that every superhero of love has. And super hearing is just that. It's like listening in the quiet moments and being able to hear the messages that are coming in from wherever you might say that they're coming in from. But I feel like those of us that are connected and hear those messages and know that they are messages for us, we have a different sense of feeling supported. And so that makes us more bold. You know what I mean? So like, and you and I share that in common, that we had that from an early age. So I'm just wondering, do you have any tips for somebody that doesn't have that natural assumption that what they're getting is actually from the divine or is from their highest self? I'm just wondering if you have any tips on.
Well, I would say, first of all, that everything comes to me in the middle of the night, like at 3 a.m, most of these things. And I think the most important time of anyone's life is right before they go to sleep at night and right just when they wake up in the morning. And those are the 2 times that your mind is the clearest, or should be, or that's when I come into it during the night. I think people just have to be open. And I also trust my instincts very much. I trust my instincts and I trust my heart, because I know that I'm getting the right messages usually. And it's almost like a 7th sense, if you will, or something. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I also walk up Runyon Canyon or to the Hollywood sign. And if I'm hiking, if I need clarity, I go for a big hike. And I find that that's when I can get clarity.
Oh, that's cool. So going into nature. But I love that tip. I love that tip about before you go to sleep and when you first wake up in the morning. So maybe a tip is to have a notebook next to your next on your bedside table and a pen.
I do.
Do you really? That's great. Oh my gosh.
I get up so often at 2 or 3 in the morning and I have to jot things down. So I always keep my writing there. I don't know if you've ever heard of automatic writing, but yes, some people do that. And so I always kept something there to write. As a lot of times poetry comes into me and then I write it in the middle of the night.
Well, let's tell everybody else about automatic writing though. So you can go ahead and give them that little tutorial just in case they've never heard of automatic.
Well, you know, I had some friends back in Boston where I grew up, and they told me that they would wake up and just start writing and writing and writing, and it was called automatic writing, and things would pour out of them that they didn't even know where they got the source from. Mine is a little bit different from that, but it's not automatic writing. But they also did table tipping, and they taught me that, which is kind of putting your hands on a bridge table, and it's like a seance, but you ask it questions and the table actually rises and gives you yes and no answers. And that's also having to do with people that are like gone or in heaven, and they give you clues. So I learned so much from these people, and it was one of my trucking clients actually.
Wow.
Who taught me all that. Yeah, he couldn't believe that now I'm making movies, but it's so funny.
That's so fantastic. I learned about automatic writing in high school, but my teacher called it fire writing, and just write and don't care about, but he wasn't connecting it with the divine. And then my dad later connected it with the divine, and I still use that as a tool. I used it after my father died too, just write him letters and have him respond. You know, I just let him, like I would ask, dear dad, and I would ask him a question and then wait for my pen to just sort of release the answer and just see what he said. And so if anybody listening has never tried this before and it sounds really hokey and weird, it's not as weird as it sounds. You just take that pen and that paper and let it fly and just see what happens. And if you don't judge it, then you can get some really cool things out of it. All right, so now I'm going to steer back to your personal life because I am so inspired. You're in August, you're going to be celebrating your 50th anniversary with Alan. And I know that following people on social media is, you get a snapshot of people that is obviously it's curated, first of all, and it's generally people aren't showing the ugly times. But I think everybody can tell that yours doesn't need to be curated, that you genuinely are. And every time I've seen you guys together, you genuinely are that happy together. And you're very, very close to your two daughters and to your grandkids. And I'm just, that's not really the norm out there. So I wanted to have you give whatever tips you have for creating such a heart-centered family.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I have to believe I met Alan when I was quite young, and our first year of marriage, we lived in Heidelberg, Germany, just the two of us, when he was drafted in the time of the Vietnam War. And in those days, we didn't have telephone, we didn't have any communication with our family for a year. I mean, we wrote letters, but that was it. And I really believe, and I tell people that now, that that's what the foundation of our marriage was, because not only were we husband and wife, we became best friends, and we couldn't rely on no one. We were surrounded by foreigners, by people who didn't speak our language. We didn't know anything about the military. And, I had just graduated college in 3.5 years and ran over there with him. So that was what I think brought us so close together. And we could get through anything. If we could get through that, we could get through anything. We were living on $85 a month, which was our salary from the military. So that was the beginning of us becoming strong together, separately and together. The other thing is that we give each other space, and Alan has always done that. I'm so creative, and I'm doing 10 things at once, and I always had a career, and he never, begrudged that. He was like, you want to work, we'll get somebody to watch the kids, I get an au pair. So I think because he gave me my space always, and he wasn't like trying to hold me back, and he's really proud of what I do now, that was another reason that we were able to flourish. Also, the reason that I became so compassionate and so empathetic for others in my work is because when Alan was 50, he had a severe heart attack, and he was very, very ill. And the doctors told me, send for your children, he won't make it. And they were both in college. And because I went through 2 years of hell with that, and tried to make him stay alive, it brought me to the sense of anything's possible to help people. So I had the compassion and the empathy for all of my subjects and my characters who have gone through the worst and been suicidal and then come back from that. So I think, we've helped each other whenever, like they say, in sickness and in health. Well, we've done that. We've had the whole gamut, the whole route. And now, since Alan got sick, which was in 1997, my goal has been get him to the next holiday or the next birthday or the next anniversary. Do something great for him. Do something special. Do something exciting. And that's been my mission in life. And because that's been my mission, look what great things have happened to me. So, my children know I do everything to celebrate them, to celebrate the birth of each grandchild and their bar mitzvahs and their graduations. And we're there for each child, and we do everything, and we try to be in the moment. Alan always says, enjoy the journey. Like, enjoy the moment. Don't worry about the past, and don't think about the future. Think about the present now. And that's what we do. Wow.
You guys are both such incredibly, just such heart-centered inspirations, really. It's so beautiful. I mean, living in the now is, we talk about it all the time, and, I meditate several times a day even, and or do the John Douglas processes several times a day. And being in the now is even still, not so easy for me. I'm always in awe of people that can do that and can refocus. It's and for people that have been through trauma too. So I'm sure that you were such a great listener to the people that you were interviewing, because when you're dealing with that trauma, it's so easy to relive that trauma over and over again and not stay in the present. You're amazing.
Well, true. Thank you.
Well,
I've had a good upbringing, and I think, my parents were so good to me and my 3 siblings, and we're very, very supportive of each other. And, like people say to me, oh, the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree, and my kids are like me and they're special and all. But, I brought my children, they were the youngest children, to walk on the hot coals with Anthony Robbins when they were like 7 and 9. But when I've had experiences, I give it to my children. Yeah, that's why they're so successful, I think.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so and let's go back. I want to go back just a little bit to the quiet explosions, because what you just said sparked that, the thoughts about people who have experienced trauma and having to relive that trauma and things. What are the doctors doing to bring people back to the present and to bring people present to their hearts and the fact that they are now in a different place than they were? How do they do that?
Well, when this neuroendocrinologist, Dr. Gordon, treats someone and figures out what's missing in the brain and then replenishes it, when those people don't have these horrible symptoms of the severe depression or wanting to kill themselves or drinking to be drunk all the time, they all of a sudden have a new self-worth and a new self-esteem, and they can actually have a conversation with their wife or their spouse or their girlfriend. They were not able to do that before. So they feel better about themselves. It's all about how you feel about yourself. I mean, right. You can't influence other people in the world until you feel that way. I mean, I'm a big proponent of that. So Andrew Marr is the perfect example. I mean, he couldn't speak to anybody in the family. There was no conversations with Andrew, his mom says in the movie. And his wife says he was up in a closet, in the fetal position, just shaking all day, crying. Well, how could you possibly be in the present when you're like almost like off the earth? So when they start feeling better and everything starts aligning in their brain, it's easy for them, and it's almost like a miracle to them. So then they can start cooking for their kids and eating scrambled eggs with them, like in the movie. Right. And they just have a joy that was missing before. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And it's so inspiring. That is fantastic. Yeah. And, depression, we're hearing so much more about depression and suicide. I personally have, within like 2 degrees of separation, 3 suicides that have happened in the last 9 months or year. And it's, and suicide awareness, I know, is definitely increasing, and encouraging people to reach out to hotlines, etc. And this is so inspiring that, I mean, it very easily could just be that this is what's going on, that they suffered a trauma, whether it was many, many years ago or last year, and their brain has never recovered, and they're still dealing with that. It's unbelievable. I mean, like, how many people who have depression and suicide that could be possibly affected by this cure, basically.
Exactly. I mean, for sure, most of the correlation with these doctors with depression is problems in the brain, because it's not real. It's like what Dr. Amen says is, if you have a problem with your bones, the doctor takes an x-ray to look at the bone. If you have a problem with your lungs, they look at your lungs. If you have a problem with the heart, the cardiologist looks at your heart. But when you have a mental problem, nobody looks at the brain. You're just sitting in a psychiatrist's office talking to them. Wow. But they're not looking at that organ.
That's genius. That's genius. Look at that brain. All right. And on a lighter note, I just want to tell everybody about your Amazon bestseller book too. We have to tell people about that because there may be somebody listening who could use your book, which is, I mean, you have such eclectic art that has come out of you, and this book, How to Have a Successful Bridal Shower from A to Z. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, all my life I've been giving parties and having parties, even when I was in the trucking business, especially thinking up these great ideas. And that's kind of why when my daughters were ready to become, married and have showers, we had all these extraordinary things happening. And I'd been collecting all these recipes over the years from my mom, who was a fabulous cook. And then I decided I'll just write everything down. And I kept writing the book. And then I wanted people to have a fun thing. So I said A to Z, so I could have a B, a Bridget party, or J, a Jerry party. And I came up with these great names for each party. So it's really a mix and match. You can use this book for Halloween or, Christmas or birthday or anniversary, because everything's mix and match. But I felt like you really have to have fun in life. I work really hard, but I also have fun. And when I'm working, I'm working. I'm 150% doing what I'm doing at the time, but I can compartmentalize my brain so that when I'm reading a story to my grandchild, that's where I am, and I'm nowhere else. And when I'm, in a party or having a party or giving a party, that's where I am. So we had a great party for the cast and crew after the screening, and everybody was just, you could tell it was almost like we were all in heaven, because I had a red carpet and I had them walk into through the red carpet, and then there was the poster to take a picture. Anyway, it was just fabulous, and everybody, there was so much camaraderie and so much love. I mean, it was really amazing. So the book is really my life. I mean, it's all about celebrating good times.
That's so beautiful. And it's also, I was just talking about this with a friend, because I love to throw dinner parties, and I always have too, since I went to college and finally had my own kitchen. I've thrown dinner parties, and I feel like it's such a fun way to also express your love for people. Like that's the way, like my friend that I was talking to about this said, like, throwing a dinner party makes me want to shoot myself in the head, but for you, it's your joy. It's so true. It's like not everybody is it that their expression of love, but for you and me, like throwing parties is an expression of love, and it is. It's fun for us. But I'm sure that your book also makes it easier for the people that find party giving stressful. So.
Well, it gives them over 500 ideas, so they don't have to think, and it's very creative. My thing in life is very creativity, because when I was 8 years old, I won this art contest in grammar school, and I knew then I was going to become a painter and an artist, and my parents knew it too. The art comes through in every aspect of my life. And when I was in trucking, the only way the art could come through was giving parties. And they gave me an 84-foot yacht, the Pretty Woman yacht. And I used to have parties on this yacht. And it was so much fun, so, and now I still continue to do that in different ways to entertain. It could be even 2 or 3 women on a tea or, a luncheon. But if you have a place card or you give them a gift when they leave, it's just the special things in life. Right. And you have, there's so much going on in the world and so much digital going on. I think we have to get back to basics. I always say I should have been born in the time of the covered wagons, with the big hoop dresses, because I always wear a hat, and I like to have a hat collection, because I think there's so much creativity that we're missing. Some people are missing because they're not thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that thinking outside the box thing and the creativity is really, it's a great, I love that and I have seen that you are living your life that way. And it's such a great shining light to follow. Thinking outside the box and being as creative as possible. When you're in fear, it's hard to be creative, and it's hard. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can be in fear. So if somebody is kind of paralyzed by fear and doesn't know what they're doing, and you want to spark them to creativity, is there anything that you would say to those people?
When you said the word fear, it cut out a little. Just could you repeat that? Because I didn't hear the whole sentence.
Yes. No. So sometimes when people hear that they should be creative or think outside the box, if they're in fear at that moment, and maybe they're confronted by the newness of whatever they're doing, but you're encouraging them to think outside the box, is there any tip that you might want to give those people that might be a little bit stuck, and not be able to think outside the box?
Right. Well, the problem with the word fear is, and this is why I shudder to think of people in fear, is they really are almost like in a paralyzation. They're paralyzed, and they're not open. They're opposite of open. They're like becoming a shell of sorts. So my thing is that people need to open up their heart and open up their mind. That's the only way they're going to be lacking of fear and not having fear. And I say, write things down. Like, if you're afraid of something, write down what it is, and then tear it up into a million pieces of paper and then burn it. Okay, the fear's gone. It might be a little metaphorical, but that's okay. And then do the opposite. Write down 2 good things or 5 good things. It might be as simple as taking a hot bubble bath with candles going, or buying a new lipstick for a woman, or going to a game with some guys and eating peanuts all day or something. But you want to get out of that habit and that shell of being so scared and so fearful that you won't let yourself go. Let yourself just imagine the best. Imagine wonderful things.
Oh, that's so great. And you can use that notebook next to your bedside for that too, right? Imagining. When people are trying to figure out what they want to do next in life, I always say, just let yourself do the automatic writing. I call it fire writing. Just do the fire writing about your ideal life, your ideal job. You don't even have to know what that job is, but imagine, are there people around, or do you work a 5-hour day, or do you work a 15-hour day? And do you work on weekends too? And things like that. It's like, just let your imagination go. And for the people that are not used to letting their imagination go and thinking outside the box, then
and also,
yeah,
one thing I should mention, because it's so important, is you should only surround yourself with people like yourself or better, and positive people. Like, I never associate with people who are negative, or if I don't feel like they're at my level, on a positive level, I cannot associate with them. So if you surround yourself with good people, and you're fearful or something, and you need like a pick-me-up, you call one of those people who's your supporter, who's your positive lover, helper, and just have them give you feedback or talk with you or talk it through. You always have to have support from people like yourself or better.
That's great. Support networks, very, very important. Thank you for all of that very, very important wisdom and inspiring wisdom. You are just such a creative superhero of love force out in the world, doing such amazing work. And I'm so happy that you're in my orbit, and I hope that our orbit keeps crossing.
I hope people will watch our trailer.
Yes. So we will put the link to the trailer, but tell them verbally how they can get to the trailer.
Okay. So we have a website called quietexplosions.com, and they can go to quietexplosions.com, or they can go to the Jerri Sher website. The trailer's there also, jerrisher.com. It's just how my name is spelled, JerriSher.com. And they can watch it. And on Facebook, they can go to the Quiet Explosions page on Facebook and get on it and like it, so that they can get updates of when the movie's going to be in theaters.
Yay. I haven't even done that. I'm going to do that as soon as we hang up. Okay, that's great. I cannot wait to see Quiet Explosions. I'm so excited for you. Thank you for doing this important work, and for opening up a whole other world for those who are suffering with depression and suicidal thoughts. Thank you so much this is such important work. So I'm so happy that you came on to talk about it, Jerri.
Thank you. It's a privilege for me to be the one to give it to the world. I'm just so privileged and so thankful to everyone in my life who has put me in this place right now. And thank you, Bridget, because what you're doing for everyone out there is just such a beautiful thing. Superhero of love. I mean, I love it. It's just amazing.
It's because it is you. You're more a superhero of love than I am. You should have written the damn book. All All right. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. I mean, Jerri. Oh my God. I can't believe I just said Sherry. Thank you, Jerri, for coming today to talk with all the superheroes of love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.